All right, good afternoon, everyone. Quick show of hands who were at the keynote this morning. Awesome. So in the keynote, we talked about Einstein Copilot, we showed it, but this session is going to go one step deeper into what Einstein Copilot is, why did we build it, and we're going to show some exciting demos, real demos of how it works behind the scene. So let's get started. Forward-looking statement. Oh, I thought it was too hard to read it, so I actually asked Einstein Copilot to actually summarize this forward-looking statement. It essentially means that don't make your purchasing decision based on what we're saying here, but look at what products are already available in GA. But Copilot is beta, so it's available for you to start using it. All right, before we start, thank you. Thank you for being a great customer of ours, partner of ours. Thanks for all the feedback that you've given us. And all what you plan to give us even for Copilot. So big thanks for that. So we have a packed agenda today. My name is Vinay Balasubramaniam. I head the product team for Einstein Copilot. With me are two amazing product managers from the team, Brad and Avi, who will be here shortly. So what are we going to cover? First of all, we will talk about why we built Einstein Copilot and how does it work. We will talk about, and we'll show you what are the different capabilities of Einstein Copilot that it's available in beta. But more interestingly, how can you extend Einstein Copilot through customizing through custom actions that Avi is going to show. And we will have time in the end for Q&A, so we encourage all your questions and we'll have time to answer them. So let's get started. Now, generative AI has significantly changed the way applications are going to get built. So for developers like you, the question is, how do I build AI-powered apps with generative AI and large language models? But more interestingly, what sort of platform do I build? But before we get there, let's understand what the shift looks like. And the way I could think of this is thinking about the human brain. Right? Human brain has two parts, left and right. The right brain is really about user interface, and that's the big shift. Over the decades, we have seen how humans converse with computers. Right? It started off with click-based UI, it evolved to a graphical interface UI, but the next big leap is natural language interface. And we at Salesforce strongly believe that every application will have a natural way of conversing with your application. The second is, or on the left brain, is the reasoning engine. And this is where data plays a big, important role, is how do you organize your data and ground it so that you can use all of the goodness of your data within your enterprise to answer questions. And this is where large language models are really powerful. So essentially, if you think about the shift, is how do you bring this left and right brain together to help build your application? So now if you think about how AI is changing the nature of your work, from a click-based UI, that is, you're used to that, it's more conversational. From data being siloed in different parts of your organization, you will have one single data lake where all of this data resides that you can use to ground all of your information. From manual processes, you can go into automation. Right? These are different shifts we are seeing. And having all of these applications being disconnected, it'll be in the flow of work. So that's when we looked at why we want to build Einstein Copilot. We asked, how do you build an application platform that you as developers and administrator can customize that to build generative applications? And that's exactly what Einstein Copilot does. It's really bringing those left and right brain together so that you have an Einstein right by your side. It's built into every single application that we have, whether you're a salesperson or a service agent or a marketer, Einstein Copilot is there in the flow of your work that you can use and have a conversation. It's a single conversational assistant for CRM. It's not like you have multiple copilots. You have one single copilot that you could use and have a conversation. And lastly, it's extensible. That means you can use all of your investments you have done in Apexes, Flows, MuleSoft, prompt templates, and bring that into Copilot. So what are the key tenets that we have built our Copilot? First of all, it's a consumer-grade experience. We have Copilot today that is available for you in Lightning, but the same experience is available for you in Salesforce mobile app. It's available for you to use. And behind the scene, it uses the same platform. It's easy to set up. As an admin, we were just in the lab this morning, and one of the things I heard, which really made me excited, is that how easy it is to set up Copilot and get it up and running. So the ease of use was something we really focused on. It's customizable, which means you can take your investments in Apex and Flows and build your own Copilots for your organization. And lastly, trust is a core fundamental of the way we have built Copilots, which means you as admins, you as developers can test how Copilot behaves before you roll it out within the organization, and we'll show you how all of that works together. But before we go there, let's look at what the Einstein Copilot stack looks like. At the foundation layer, we have Hyperforce, which is our enterprise scale cloud infrastructure. Then we have the Salesforce metadata. All of the things that makes Copilot unique, it is grounded on your Salesforce metadata. We have an understanding of that. So when you ask any question, it understands how to interpret that question. Then we have the AI platform, which allows you to easily integrate with large language providers or bring your own large language models. And the next one is the trust layer. Trust layer allows you to provide services like dynamic grounding, PII masking, toxicity detection, auditing. And these are things that you don't have to do because you have done all of the hard work to make these services part of our trust layer. But the next 4 layers are the ones that Einstein Copilot adds on top of our platform. So what are those? First thing is extensibility, and we call them actions. Actions are the way you can extend Copilots. We ship out-of-the-box actions, but you can extend that. So actions are the way you tell Copilot what tasks Copilots can do. The next layer is the planner. Think of planner as the brain of the Copilot, where it interprets all of the user intent and decomposes them into steps, does all of the entity resolution based on the metadata layer, and figures out what should happen. Then there are Copilot experiences. We have the employee Copilot that is built into the Salesforce CRM, but we also have the digital channels that you can deploy in your consumer-facing channel, whether web channel, WhatsApp channel, Facebook channel. That is all built on the same stack. So once you build your actions on one stack, it can be deployed in different areas. So that's the power of having a unified stack built on the metadata layer. We have the Einstein Studio. This is where the magic is witnessed, where you can configure Copilots, you can build prompts, you can build Copilots, you can build models. All of this thing comes together in Einstein Studio. So let's look at how Copilot works behind the scene. So it starts off with user providing an input, which we also call as utterance. So in this case, hey, can you create an email to Alex Mitchell about our sustainability program? If you see what happens, like the user is asking to create an email to Alex. So Alex is an entity inside CRM. And we use that Salesforce metadata to understand what the user is trying to do. Then we generate what we call a plan. And what essentially is a plan is it looks at all of the actions that are registered inside Copilot, and it sees that for this input, what sort of actions that I use to answer this question. It starts by, hey, I need to identify who Alex is. Let's understand from metadata. So I need the identify record action, and I need to chain that with a draft email action by passing the input, right? So Copilot creates a plan based on the user utterance, and the next stage is you execute the plan. You go after and say, let's execute this plan step by step. And if there is any request that you need to go and disambiguate, like for example, if there is Alex Mitchell, who's a lead or a contact, Copilot will go back to the user and say, hey, I found 2 Alexes. Which one is it, right? So the user can say, okay, it's actually this Alex. And then it uses that input and continues the workflow and executes that and provides a response based on all of the grounded data that we have in our CRM. But once it executes, it generates the response, passes it back to the client, whether it's mobile client or Lightning client, and it sort of shows up in the interface. But then you can actually go and ask refined questions saying, hey, this is too long. Can you make it less formal or less shorter or add? Right? At that point, Copilot has memory. It knows what was the previous utterance. It doesn't have to go back and ask the user, and it goes back into the execution step, and then it continues, right? So it sort of makes it more conversational for you to ask follow-up questions because it retains the history of how the previous utterance that user has. So that is step by step on how we looked at how Copilot works. But now let's look at what are the different out-of-the-box actions that we ship, for which let me invite Brad, who's going to walk us through that. Thanks.
Thanks, Vinay. All right. Thank you, Vinay. Hi, everyone. I'm Bradley Walker, Director of Product Management, and I'm excited to be here with you today to continue sharing what we've been working hard building with this new Einstein Copilot that we launched just last week. And so over the next few minutes, I'd like to focus on one specific part of the anatomy of a Copilot, and that is actions. So if you're wondering to yourself, what can Einstein Copilot do for my users? Well, the answer really depends on what actions are available to the Copilot when a user request comes in. So actions are predefined sets of instructions that perform tasks in Salesforce for your users. And you can think about actions like a Salesforce invocable action, which can be invoked by the Copilot using just natural language. So for example, if a user wants to update a Salesforce record, they might type a command like, change the close date of my opportunity to next Friday. Now, if an update action exists, then the Copilot would know that it must first identify the right record to update, identify the fields that the user wants to update, parse the field values that the user has specified in their utterance to make sure we're updating with the right values, and then get confirmation from the user before saving. So the beauty of an action is that it allows your users to execute tasks using just natural language, extremely fast in Salesforce. And we have two different types of actions. So we have our standard actions, which are built by Salesforce to allow our customers to have capabilities out of the box as soon as you turn on the Copilot. And these are built by our platform team, who's focused on building actions that are applicable to all different use cases across job functions and domains. And then we also have our cloud actions that are built by our various cloud teams, looking at their individual specific areas like sales and service and marketing and commerce. And because of this, you're really going to see the number of available actions expand dramatically over the next few months and releases. Now, we also have our custom actions. So custom actions are built by you and your teams. So it really opens up a world of possibilities of new actions that you can bring to your organizations when you leave here today. And Avi's going to come up here in a moment and talk a little bit more about custom actions. So before we get there, let's really put the spotlight on our standard actions for a few minutes. So just last week, we launched a handful of standard actions that are available for use today. As soon as you turn on the Copilot, you have access to these. So this includes the ability for your users to use conversation to search for records in Salesforce, to summarize records, to draft and revise emails, to answer your users' questions using Salesforce knowledge, as well as curated summaries for both sales and service users. And what's really exciting about this is that they mold to the customizations of your organization because they work for both standard and custom objects and fields. But how do these really work? So let's take a closer look at an action. So I mentioned before, an action is basically an invocable action, which can be invoked by the Copilot when a natural language utterance comes in from the user. And so there are three main components that make up an action. We have instructions, inputs, and outputs. Instructions are critical. This is how you tell the planner service, which is the brain behind the Copilot, when should you use this action. And so you can see here we are looking at the summarize action. And the instructions state that this action should be used to summarize a CRM record. And we also provide a couple of keyword examples of when this might be called and when we want this to be initiated by the Copilot. Now, the inputs of the summarize record action state that we require the record ID of the record that's going to be summarized, and the output expects a rich text response, a rich text summary, to come back to the user. So let's take a look at some of these working live in a real org for a moment. Now think about all your CRM users who, are constantly working in Salesforce day after day. They now have access to their very own personal assistant who can work right there with them in the flow of work. So let's think about your sales users for a moment. They're constantly jumping between customer meetings and CRM, working to manage their day. Well, we want to make that easier for them. We want to give them the access to this assistant that's going to be accessible from any page in Salesforce, even on the home page. So now if you're a CRM user looking to get information, you can simply type a command to the Copilot and you'll be able to access that information in seconds. So here we have a sales user who's looking to look at their pipeline. And so they ask a question like, what is the total value of my opportunities set to close this month? Now behind the scenes, the Copilot is processing this request. It's found the right action, which is our search action, and it's brought back an answer of 180,000. So now this sales user is looking at this and saying, I don't have enough in my pipeline, so I want to look at my new leads that were created recently. So here, all they have to do is type a command like, show me leads with the status of new. And again, the Copilot's processing that request, looking for the right action to call, This time it's brought back a list of records for the user to look through. So here are some of the new leads that they can reach out to. Now, as a sales user, naturally I'm going to reach out to these customers, probably by email. And so think about for a moment the time your sales users spend drafting personalized emails for all their prospects. Now, what if they could do this through the Copilot instead? So now with the Einstein Copilot, all they have to do is ask a question or say a command like draft a personalized email to Andy Smith and ask for a time to meet next week. And in a matter of seconds, you're going to see an email generated for them that's grounded on their CRM data, personalized to this particular lead. So this allows the sales user to move on extremely fast, and they can easily click on the send button, get that over into the composer where they can make their changes or additions, and send it off and move on with their day. So a huge shift in the way that CRM really works for your sales users. Now let's take a look at some of the other actions from the lens of your service team. So as your service agents are working to provide the best possible customer support, they also have access to their very own personal assistant, accessible from any page in Salesforce. So here we've got a service agent looking to ramp up on a case. So they use our summarize action. And they state, summarize the most recent case associated with John Amos, one of their contacts that they're about to engage with to troubleshoot. And so in a matter of seconds, you're going to see the summarize action bring back a rich text summary grounded on your CRM data that allows this user to ramp up extremely fast on the case and get in touch with that customer to help. So what we just saw with that summarize action, that's our out-of-the-box capability. So any object your users want to summarize, they're going to use that default summarize action. But it doesn't stop there. It's actually customizable. So you can really customize that summarize experience for your objects and the uniqueness of your orgs. And all you have to do is go over to Prompt Builder to do this. So here we are in Setup. We go over to Prompt Builder. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new prompt template. And when you go here, you'll select for the prompt template type, Record Summary. So we're basically building our custom summary that we want for a specific object. This is going to be for the account object, so we'll give it a quick name, a description, and then we'll select the account object from the object selector here, and then we'll move into the workspace. So this is where we can really start to get creative with defining what we want to happen when a user asks for an account summary. So this is, what's the tone, what's the experience that we want to bring back to the user with that summary? What information should we include from the account or from a related object to make sure that's included in the response that comes back? So this is where you can really define those instructions for the account object, what do we want the experience to be? So as you can see, it's extremely easy to customize the summarize object for any object, a summarize action for any object in your organization. Now we also have the knowledge action, as I mentioned before. So what this does is it looks at your knowledge database, and as your users are working throughout their day and they come across a question that they need help with, now they can get that through their very own Copilot. And so here we have a user asking a question, and the knowledge action behind the scenes has found an answer, crafted that for the user, it brings it to the Copilot, and it also includes a few relevant links. So this way the user doesn't have to spend their time sifting through articles trying to find the answer to their question. They can do that in a matter of seconds using the Salesforce knowledge action. So as you can see, we've got a lot of new capabilities that we just launched with the Copilot, and these are going to transform the way your Salesforce users work through conversational, frictionless, in the flow of work experiences. And now I'll invite up Avi to continue sharing more about the Copilot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brad. Hey, everyone. My name is Avi Shah, and I'm a director of product on our Einstein Copilot team. So this is Einstein Studio. It includes 3 things: Copilot Builder, Prompt Builder, and Model Builder. Copilot Builder is where we're going to spend most of our time today. It's where you can view and manage existing actions already added to your Copilot, or build and test brand new actions that extend Copilot's capabilities, making it more useful for your business needs. Prompt Builder, which Brad just showed you, is where you can create reusable prompt templates that are grounded in your company and customer data. And finally, Model Builder, where you can configure which LLM your app uses for various use cases. Okay, so let's dig in. This is Copilot Builder. On the left, you have the action panel. This is where you can view and manage existing actions that are already added to your Copilot. Or you can pivot over to the action library and see other actions that are also available to your org. In 2 clicks, you can select the action and add it directly to the Copilot. In the middle, you'll see the plan tracer, or what we like to call the Copilot canvas. Earlier, Vinay briefed you on the planner and told you how it acts as the left brain of your Copilot. Well, on the canvas, this is where you can see how the planner thinks. Utilizing the conversation preview on the right, you can simulate different user interactions, testing different utterances, and seeing how the planner responds and reacts in real time. This is generative AI. It's not deterministic. This is a great way to test different scenarios, see what's working and what isn't. If something doesn't look right, you can go in and modify the action instructions, the inputs, the outputs, and the triggers before rolling it out to customers. This is a really good way to make sure that your Copilot is functioning exactly how you want it to. Okay, let's change gears a little bit and talk about custom actions. Brad told you about standard actions, things like search, knowledge, the ability to summarize records, or quickly draft and revise emails. These are the core capabilities, the things that come out of the box with every single Copilot, the things that every customer needs. But in order for Copilot to be truly useful for your business, it needs to be able to do more. And that is the magic of custom actions. Custom actions allow you all to teach Copilot new skills, skills that are specific to your industry, your business, your customers, and your data. You can tell Copilot to do things like check your inventory, recommend a product, troubleshoot a case, which we'll see in a second, or search the web for relevant news for accounts. With custom actions, Copilot has the ability to become the connective tissue between your systems and the universal interface for your users, so they can stop jumping between tabs, get the answers they need quickly, and get back to what matters, which is focusing on your customers. And the best part is creating custom actions couldn't be easier. Today, we support 4 key building blocks, which can be mixed and matched to create sophisticated Copilot custom actions that do everything from automating routine processes to pulling and summarizing data from third-party systems. The first is prompt templates. Prompt templates take the overhead out of prompt engineering. They let you use natural language instructions to inform the Copilot around what CRM data matters, what tone to use, and how to format and structure various outputs. Next, we have flows, which is Salesforce's low-code automation tool. You can create new flows that call Copilot actions, as Brad talked about, invocable actions, or you can create new custom Copilot actions that call existing flows, making your Copilot an accessible and easy entry point for all of your existing team's workflows. And then finally, we have Apex and MuleSoft APIs, which make it really easy to connect to third-party systems and pull data. We're just getting started when it comes to what Copilot can do, and we're really excited to turn over these 4 building blocks to all of you and watch as you all imagine and unlock new use cases for Copilot. Okay, let's do a bit of a live demo here. Bear with me. How's that? Awesome. So imagine that I work for a utilities company, and I have a team of support agents that handle customer issues. Here we have a customer that's inquiring about their bill from July. They mentioned that they had a couple of outages and that their bill was really high. And this is a type of case that my agents have to deal with on a recurring basis. And typically, in order to triage something like this, an agent has to do a few things. First, they're going to have to go into our billing system and pull the customer's invoice. Then they're going to have to go and cross-reference that with weather patterns for the time period in question, seeing if there were any anomalies in weather patterns that may have resulted in outages or resulted in higher consumption of their utilities. And then they're going to have to assess this information and make a call and get back to the customer. And while none of these individual steps are that hard, they all take time. And this is a perfect example of where a Copilot custom action can help. So let's build one to help our agents troubleshoot this case in the future. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a basic flow. And this flow is just going to pull the relevant third-party data from our different systems. So it's going to use an Apex action that connects to our billing system to pull the customer's invoice. It's going to use a get method that's going to connect to a weather service that's going to pull the relevant weather data for the time period in question. And then it's going to use a dynamic prompt grounding element, which is really just going to format the return data as a string so that the prompt template can interpret it. Next, I have to create my prompt template. So my prompt template is where I can provide the LLM with context. I can explain to it what the situation is, what data I'm going to provide, what it should do with it, and how I want it to format and structure the output. So in this situation, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell the LLM, hey, you're an expert focusing on troubleshooting a billing issue for a company. I'm going to give you some data. It's going to include invoice data. It's going to include weather data. Pay attention to see if there's any mentions of outages. Make sure that when you respond, you format this in a bulleted list so that it's easy to interpret. Be brief and be concise. And what you can see here is that I'm doing all of this in natural language, just like I would describe this to one of my agents. The only other thing that I need to do is I just need to inject that flow that I just created, which has that relevant data. I can hit save. And then inside of the prompt builder, I can now preview this, so I can make sure that it's working exactly how I want. So let me pull up the case. There's the case. And now let's see what this prompt template actually does when it gets sent to the LLM, pulling the relevant data from the flow that I just showed you. And now let's see how the LLM outputs it. And what you're going to start to see here on the left, this is the grounded prompt template. So it's got the initial prompt that I said at the beginning. But now, instead of just that one-liner around the flow, it has that relevant data that the flow is pulling. So here's the weather data. Right underneath it is my invoice data. And even cooler, on the right, this is the output response from the LLM. So the LLM's taken all of this information, and now it's turned it into something that's digestible, clear, and easy for my agent to read. So my agent no longer has to go and pull this data from different sources or interpret it. The LLM is now returning it because I've created a flow to pull these things, and then a prompt template to explain how to present this. Okay, this is great. Now the only two things that I need to do left are create one more flow so that I can build a custom action out of it, and then I can test this in my Copilot builder. So this flow is really, really simple. It's 3 steps. All it's going to say is that, hey, given a case record ID, pull the case record, and then call the prompt template that I just created, which is this troubleshoot the case prompt template. And that's it. All right, let's go build this Copilot custom action. This is the Copilot builder. Here I'm in my actions library. I can see all of the actions that are already available to my Copilot. But in this case, I want to create a brand new action. So I'm just going to click right here on New Copilot Action. I'm going to make it of type flow. And then I'm just going to call that flow that I just created in that last step, which pulls the case record given a case ID, and then calls the prompt template. And that's it. I'm going to hit next. Great. And now this is where I can provide my action instructions to the Copilot. So as Brad mentioned earlier, the action instructions are really, really important. This is how you tell the planner when to invoke what actions, so specificity here is really key. So in this situation, I'm going to say, hey, this action is for troubleshooting a CRM case record. return the prompt response from the prompt template, and only use this action when a user specifically asks to troubleshoot a case. Great. Next, I'm going to go and fill in my inputs and my outputs. So the input here is just a case record ID. That's all the agent needs to pass in, is just say, hey, troubleshoot a specific case. I'm going to make sure that this input's required, and if it's not provided by the user, I want to make sure that Copilot prompts the user to provide it. So I'm going to make sure I set collect. And then on the output side, all I want to make sure is that the prompt response that's coming from the prompt template gets returned to that user. And I want to show this in the Copilot panel. Great. And here you can see that my new Copilot action's been created, and it's already added to my Copilot library. So now I'm going to move over to my actual Copilot. I'm just going to click right here on Copilots, click into the Copilot homepage, and now I can go and open my Copilot in the Copilot Builder. And so here what you'll see is I've got my action panel on the left, and these are all of the actions that are already live and available inside of my Copilot. But my new action's not here. It's in the Copilot action library. And so in one click, I can just select it, and then I can say assign to Copilot. Great. That action's in there. Okay, let's play around with a couple of things. So to start, why don't I just show you what a summarize action looks like. And what you'll see is I can use this Copilot panel, or the conversation preview panel on the right, to test these utterances. This isn't live. This is just happening within the confines and the safety of my playground. And so, again, a really good way to just get a feel for how the planner is responding. And so in this case, what I did was I provided the case number. The planner said, OK, I need to figure out what entity that case number corresponds to. So it called the identify record action, passed in the case number, outputted the case record ID, passed the case record ID into the summarized record, and then outputted a summary. And right here, I've got a summary that any agent can call really quickly to get up to speed on on any case record that they want. OK, now let's see if we can have our custom action work. I'm going to ask Copilot to troubleshoot this case. And as it's going through this, it's iterating through the action library, figuring out what action best corresponds to the instruction that I gave it. So if I described my action instructions properly, hopefully it'll find the case troubleshooter action. And there it is. It troubleshoots the case live, and this looks awesome. So no longer do my agents have to go pull the manual invoice data, pull the weather data. All of a sudden, in one sentence, they can say, hey, troubleshoot this case. Copilot gives them an interpretation of what may have gone wrong. It tells them when the outages were, and it formats it in an easy-to-read scenario. I'm going to click Activate. And now what I've done is I'm just rolling this out to my customers. That's all I have to do. I just hit Activate. And if I go back to the case record and open it, I got to reload the page. This is just old habits. I don't have to type all of that out. I could have just said troubleshoot this case, but let's see. And so, again, for my agents panel now, live demos. Let's try it one more time. Record ID. Let's grab it. And as this is pulling up, what I can make sure I do is I can flip back into my Copilot library and just make sure that everything looks good, right? So if I ever want to go in and check the action, I can go in and I can do that. I can jump back into my action library. I can verify that I've done the instructions and the inputs and the outputs properly. But here we go. On the second time, it works, and my agents now have this capability and functionality, which is awesome. Okay. So as all of you are starting to think about custom actions, we have a couple of best practices to kind of keep in mind. So the first thing is, whenever possible, use standard actions before going custom. Standard actions are the actions that have been built by our teams, our platform teams, our cloud teams, and they're really hardened against a variety of utterances and use cases. As Brad showed you, you can always customize and tweak some of the standard actions so that they work better for your teams and your use cases. The second thing is, before creating any Copilot custom action, ask yourself a few questions. What are you building this for? Is this to save your users time? Is it to provide them with insights? How do you want the output to be structured? Is this meant for a conversational interface? Having answers to these types of questions in advance will make the rest of your action definition much more seamless and specific. The third thing is, be careful about things like instructions, inputs, and outputs. These are the only pieces of information that the planner has in order to pick the right action. Specificity here is key, and if something doesn't look right, you can always go back and tweak them and A/B test these things. And then finally is test your actions. Again, this is generative AI, right? The outputs aren't always deterministic, but what we're trying to do is save your team's time over the long haul. And so the more that you test these things, the better you'll get a feel for when they're working and what situations that you need to guard against. How do you get this? Well, Copilot is available now. So all you have to do, it's live in beta, talk to your AE, and they'll be able to get you hooked up with this as soon as you want it. And if this wasn't enough and you guys are interested in learning more about Copilot, we've got a ton of awesome content and sessions that are going to be happening throughout the week. This afternoon, we've got a breakout just down the hall, I believe, from this room that Shipra is going to be on point for. And then we've also got the Einstein Lookout, where you will hear from different AI experts. You can get inspired around seeing other customers talk about their use cases. And then we've got a couple of hands-on workshops as well today and tomorrow. So with that, I think we all just want to say thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy your TDX, and we'll open it up to questions if any of you have any. If you do, please use the mic out here in the front of the room.